Hello, my name is Phuong Anh, and I'm from the University of Languages and International Study. So today I'm going to give a presentation about incorporating English as an international language in teaching materials. A case of an English as an English for academic purposes course in Vietnam. So to start with, I would like to present to you the outline of my presentation. So first, I'm going to introduce to you the background to my research in the introduction. And then I'm going to review some related literature. And next, I'm going to, present the method that I have employed to conduct my research. In the fourth part, I'm going to present the results and discussion related to what I found. And finally, I'm going to, draw out the conclusion that I have from this research. So to start with, I would like to talk about the spread of English. So imperialism, colonization, as well as globalization have resulted in the spread of English as a means for international communication. And it has come in a very tremendous scope. Like nowadays, English has become the official language of 88 countries. And this includes 60 sovereign and 28 non-sovereign states. And this is the most common second language in the world. And also in different parts of the world, English is used as a language of communication, of international diplomacy, in international working environment, in research and publishing, and for information sharing. And in education, then English is the most widely taught foreign language in the world. So because of this spread of English, then the number of speakers from countries where English is not mother tongue actually outnumbers the number of native speakers by 3 to 1, according to Safeholder in 2011. And so English is no longer the language of a native speaker, but its ownership has now been transferred to the people who speak it, according to Norton in 1997. So this widespread of English would means that English would have to take on the characteristics of people who speak it. Non-native speaker of English would normally adapt English both structurally and pragmatically to fit the local use of English. And so English as an international language has emerged as a new paradigm of ELT, which various scholars have based on to develop, their syllabus materials. So the integration of EIL in teaching materials and teaching methods have been seriously considered by lots of scholars, such as Doe in 2012. However, most studies would just try to explore the teachers' and students' perceptions, and very few studies would try or sought to measure the practices of EIL integration in material design. So my study was set out to investigate the material developers' perceptions of incorporating EIL in teaching materials, as well as to measure the extent to which EIL has been actually incorporated in the teaching materials. And I actually focus on the listening skill of an English for academic purposes course in a language major university in Vietnam. And my research question are, so what do material developers of listening skills of the AIP course perceive of incorporating English as an international language in teaching material? And second, to what extent is EIL incorporated in the teaching materials of listening skill of the AIP course? So that was the background to my research. Now let's come to the related literature. First, I'm going to try to define some terms that I have used in my research, and then I'm going to move on to the theoretical framework that I employ for my research. Now, regarding this terminology, it is important to understand EIL, or English as an international language. So this is a paradigm of perspective, according to Mark K. 2002, and Sheffield 2009. And this paradigm recognizes the international functions of English and is used by speakers of diverse cultural backgrounds. And this is not a single variety of English, but rather it would just focus on the pluricentricity of English. Another term that I would like to clarify would be word Englishes. So word Englishes, as you can see in the first one, what refers to the pluricentric approach to classify English by culture. So as you can see from this model, in the inner circle countries such as the USA or the UK, English would be used as a native language or the first language or mother tongue, as we say. And in another circle, which is the outer circle, like in India, Nigeria, Jamaica, for example, English would be used as a second language. And in the expanding circle, English would be used as the foreign language, such as in the case of Vietnam. So that was the first, things to be clarified about world Englishes. Another things to clarify would be the world Englishes with the no capitalized W. So this term refers to all varieties of English or the new Englishes, according to Malina in 2018. And this term would entails the changes found in pronunciation, grammar, and lexical items. Now, the next term would be teaching materials. So basically, according to Brown in 1995, then teaching materials would refer to books or any sort of, audio visuals or games or any types of activities that go on in the language classroom. And in my research, I would use teaching materials to refer to the syllabus materials, the kind of materials which were developed by the material developers to serve the purpose of the course. All right, so far so good. I have been trying to clarify EIL, word Englishes, and teaching materials. Now, next, I would like to turn to the theoretical frameworks. So in order to evaluate, select, and develop EIL materials, then Molina in 2018 have proposed 4 principles of, to understand EIL materials. So in particular, syllabus materials should provide exposure to varieties of English, should include representation of a variety of multilingual speakers of world Englishes with no capital W, and of interaction among them. Thirdly, they should also include the representation of and the exposure to different culture values. And they should also provide students with opportunities to develop skills to communicate across the differences. So in my research, as my focus is on the English for academic purposes course for the first year students, and especially I will focus on the listening focused materials. Then I will try to clarify that these materials will include the theme-based listening, the vocabularies, and also the pronunciation. Okay. So in the next part, I will be talking about the methodologies that I have employed to conduct my research. So overall, my research was conducted based on qualitative and quantitative research. So the setting of this research was, as I said before, an EAP course for the first year students in the semester 2. And the participants for the research are also the 2 material developers of the course. So in order to collect data, and also to analyze data, I conducted content analysis and semi-structured interview. So content analysis, I devised a checklist for content analysis, which were adapted from Molina in 2018. And also for the interview questions, I devised interview question with a view to gaining the material developers' perceptions of integrating EIL in the teaching materials, and also to enhance the quality of the content analysis. Now, in the next part, I would like to present the findings and also the discussion. So overall, regarding the material developers' perception, and it is shown that the material developers actually support teaching EILs in a globalized context and integrating EIL in the teaching listening to the first-year students. And in particular, they agree on the incorporation of varieties of English, especially those that students are familiar with in the teaching material. They also agree on the inclusion of speakers of the world Englishes and their interactions in the materials. They also recognize the importance of incorporating skills to communicate across differences, and this would include the attitudinal resources and also other, skills. However, they still place an emphasis on inner circle cultures. Now, regarding the actual AIL integration in the listening materials, I would report the findings based on principle which was proposed by Molina in 2018. So as can be seen from the graph over here, then there seems to be a modest exposure to varieties of English in the materials, as only 6 materials contain, exposure to varieties of English. And among the 6, materials, only half of the incorporated varieties seems to be relevant to the students. It means that the other half is not relevant to the students. They would include the kind of varieties which are not so familiar with the Vietnamese students, such as the Dutch English, the Jamaican English, for example. Now, regarding the second principle, then there seems to be a limited representation of multilingual speakers of world Englishes and their interaction. So in total, there are 7 materials featuring, this principle. But, surprisingly, there is one material which was, voiced over by the native speaker, and that would, be that would actually reduce the quality of the representation or the authenticity of the representation of the multilingual speakers of world Englishes and reduce the authenticity of their interaction. Now, regarding the third principle, then it is clear from this graph that cultural content has been strategically diversified in the teaching materials. However, there's still an imbalance in, the kind of culture value embedded in these materials, as can be seen from the graph. So this imbalance, as reported by the materials developer, was due to the availability of the materials on the local culture and also the expansion of students' knowledge. Now, let's move on to the last principle. So the last principle would concern the integration of skills to communicate across the differences. And the materials actually provide a fair opportunities to develop skills to communicate across the differences. And as can be seen from the graph, then the attitudinal resources plays less emphasis on compared to the interpersonal strategies. And these varied strategies are used to foster the communication in globalized context. So far so good. I have been, reporting on the 2, aspects of the research, the perceptions of the material developers, and also the actual integration of EIL in the listening materials. So far, what I found was that though there seems to be a clash between the materials developer perceptions and the practice of EIL incorporation in the teaching materials. And the data, the findings from the semi-structured interview review that the challenges are could be because of the lack of materials, of the lack of the available materials to include, and also because of the time constraints within a lesson that does not allow the materials developer to incorporate more elements of EIL in the lessons. And also another thing is that it seems like EIL integration in teaching material is still new in the Vietnamese context. And as reported by the material developers, then this will continue to receive more attention in the future. So to conclude my research, first I would like to summarize the findings of my research, and then I'm going to turn to the implications that I have drawn from the research. So first, regarding the perceptions of the material developers. So it seems like the material developers actually support teaching of EIL and also the EIL incorporation in teaching materials. And they agree on the incorporation of word Englishes, the representations of speakers of word Englishes, and diverse culture, values, and skills to help students to communicate across the differences. However, when it comes to the actual integration, like the thing that I have actually done, then there seems to be a modest integration of EIL in the teaching materials in general. And there's a very moderate exposure to word Englishes. There is also limited exposure to representation of speakers of word Englishes. The cultural contents, the source of cultural content has been diversified, but with a disproportion on the part of local culture. And there is, there are fair opportunities for students to develop skills to communicate across the differences. So this finding has helped to me to draw out some implications for the future research. So first, when we take all together, these results suggest that there seems to be a certain contradict between the material developers and perceptions and the actual practice of AI integration. And this indicates the need for more place for EIL in the teaching materials as well as the practice of teaching EIL. Especially when teaching EIL has become increasingly crucial these days. And however, the integration of EIL neither implicates the total replacement of all the current ELT teaching materials, nor is simply done by adding one or two lessons with EIL components. There should be like a revision of the course as suggested by scholars such as Matsuda and Rich in 2012. Now, to this end, well, what the teachers and materials developers should do would be to conduct learners' needs analysis, to examine the practice of material design that resonates with the communicative context of the local area, and also provide the supplementary material. So that was the one. So overall, it is also important to bear in mind the limitation of my research. So the research has been conducted in a very small scope, at just an AEP cost of a language major university. So the further research should focus more on the larger scale research with more courses on a larger university. And furthermore, it is unavoidable to have bias in data analysis, and maybe in the future the research will need some more methods for triangulation. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.